So you passed your real estate license exam, and now it's time to affiliate with a brokerage. But where or even how do you start? In this video, I'm going to share the tips that I took. Hey there, my name is Chris Henderson, and I'm a newly licensed real estate agent in the state of South Carolina. So I've recently walked through this process and want to share some tips that I took when picking a broker to hang my license with. This was a daunting task for me as far as where or even how to start, but it wasn't that bad with a little preparation. It was a little time consuming to research and do some due diligence, but it's important based on your goals and the direction you want to go. However, just know this decision isn't permanent if you don't want it to be. You can always change your brokerage if it ends up not being a great fit after you start. So don't put too much pressure on yourself trying to pick the perfect brokerage, which probably doesn't even exist. So there's really only a couple steps to the whole process. The first thing is figuring out what's most important to you in a brokerage. As a new agent, you're probably concerned with the training, the support, and the systems in place that a broker has to help you succeed. Some things you want to look out for first is to make sure the brokerage has some kind of ongoing training, whether online or in person. You learn a lot of laws and ethics in your pre-licensing course, but it's a lot different once you get on your own. So it's important to have access to some kind of classes or workshops that will help you with real life situations. Second, I think it's important that the brokerage is accessible, meaning that there's always someone you can reach out to whenever you've got questions or a problem. This will not only be helpful throughout your journey, but extremely crucial for your first couple of transactions. Third, make sure the office culture makes you feel comfortable, inspired, and is a great fit for you. It's really important that the values of the brokerage are something you can embody and that you can get on board with their mission statement. Fourth, you want to look at the fees they charge. These will vary from office to office, but if they tend to be higher, ask what they include and make sure they provide some kind of value to you, whether in the form of training, marketing materials, support, or even insurance coverage. Lastly is the commission splits. Now this isn't the most important thing when choosing a brokerage as a new agent, but make sure it's fair and ask what you're getting for the split that they're taking. These will typically be higher if you're a sole agent backed by the brokerage and lower if you join a team under a brokerage. Also remember, you still need to save 25 to 35% on top of that for taxes. So make sure to factor that in when you're calculating so you'll know exactly what you'll be making. Like I said, a lot of people will choose a brokerage based solely on what the fees and the splits are. But for new agents like me, I would say to not only focus on those. It's important to be in an environment where you'll be supported, encouraged, and help you be the best agent that you can be. Now, a quick note regarding working as a sole agent backed by a brokerage or on a team under a brokerage. Not all brokerages have teams under them, but if they do, this will typically come with a lower split or higher fees. However, we'll offer more training, mentorship, and maybe even supplies to help get you started, which can be beneficial for brand new agents. I believe this decision is really based upon your goals, learning style, and personality, so I would spend a little time to look into pros and cons of each to see what might interest you more. So step 2 is finding brokerages. So after you know what's important to you in a brokerage, go online and look up a few in your area that align with what's important to you and do some due diligence. How I started was just by researching reputable brokers in my area via Google, Zillow, and Realtor.com and looked at ones that were highly reviewed. You can also reach out to agents at that brokerage and ask them how their experience has been with that particular broker. Now, a couple things to think about. You want to be aware of the different types of real estate, as some brokerages only focus on certain ones. There's a few categories, but the main ones being commercial, residential, and leasing. Commercial real estate is basically a property that's used exclusively for business-related purposes or to provide a workspace rather than a living space like retail stores, office buildings, and warehouses. Residential is pretty obvious. It's an area developed for people to live on and is typically your 1 to 4 unit single-family homes, townhomes, and condos. And leasing, which could be residential or commercial, would be helping people find apartments, homes, or commercial space to rent. Also, you should be aware of the different markets because not all firms work in all markets. You have some that specialize in high-end real estate, some that focus on first-time home buyers, some that cater to buyers or sellers specifically, and some that do all the above. So I think it's beneficial to understand these things when you're looking so you know what to expect and where you might see yourself. Step 3 is setting up interviews. So hopefully by this point, you're able to narrow down 3 to 5 brokerages that align with what's important to you and that you think would be a good fit after the research you've done. Now this is a really easy process. You can reach out to them by either calling or emailing to schedule an interview. I sent the email, so I had a paper trail of who I spoke with and for follow-up questions, but I simply just said, hello, my name is Chris, and I would love to set up a time to interview your brokerage and see if it could be a good fit for me. From there, we set up a time to talk either via Zoom or in person at their office, which a quick note, if you do a Zoom for your first meeting, I would recommend setting a follow-up meeting in person so you can see the office, meet the BIC, and some of the people that you'll be interacting with on a day-to-day basis before committing with them. That way you get a feel of the office and the people to make sure it's a good fit for you. And that leads us into step 4, which is to prepare for the interview. Now, even though yes, this is technically an interview, it's not your traditional one-way interview. You're interviewing the brokerage just as much as they're interviewing you, so don't get too anxious about the meeting. Instead, come prepared to listen to what they have to offer you and ask questions. This is a great opportunity to learn a little bit about the brokerage, their culture, what's important to them, and how they can help you become successful. Make sure you show up 5 minutes early and dress nicely, but don't overdress. Of course, unless you're interviewing with a luxury brokerage that sells $1 million homes or based upon your particular market, then dress appropriately. When it comes to questions to ask, make sure you ask each brokerage the same questions. That way at the end, once you've interviewed everyone, it'll be a lot easier to compare them. Now, what questions should you ask? This really comes down to what's important to you and your particular area, but some of the general questions I asked were, number 1, do you offer ongoing training? And if so, what does that look like? Number 2, what kind of systems, tools, or models do you have in place? Number 3, will there be someone I can reach out to with questions or if I have immediate problems that I encounter? If so, what incentive do they have to help me? Number 4, what is the company culture like? Number 5, how many agents do you have? Number 6, how many listings does the brokerage currently have? Number 7, how does the brokerage market to bring in new business? Number 8, what's the 5 or 10-year plan or goals for the brokerage? Number 9, can you give me a breakdown of all the fees I'll be charged, whether monthly or per transaction? And number 10, how did the commission splits break down? Of course, there's plenty of other questions you can ask, and I suggest the more the better, but these are just some general ones that I asked. Again, others may be more specific to your situation or area. Step 5 is now at the interview. Again, this is not a hard interview process like some others we've all probably been on, so don't stress, it's really pretty easy. So let me walk you through what usually happens. They'll probably give you a tour of the facility first, then you'll sit down, they'll ask you some questions like, what are your goals? Are you already licensed? If not, when will you be licensed? And maybe what got you into real estate? Then they'll probably give you a presentation about their brokerage, and after that, you can ask your questions. Once the interview is complete, they'll usually ask you if you're ready to come on board, or if you could come out to one of their meetings to meet the team, or for a follow-up interview. So the last step, once you've interviewed everyone, is to compile your notes and compare them, along with the interaction you had when meeting them, to determine if what's important to them aligns with what's important for you, and looks like it could be a great fit. Now, I personally didn't focus too much on the fees and splits. I was more concerned about the training, the support, and the tools that would be provided to me being a brand new agent, as well as the dynamic of the other agents and the experience the firm had. So in closing, let's do a quick recap. Figure out what's important to you in a brokerage, look up a few brokerages online, set up interviews with them, and prepare some questions. Then compare and pick one that feels like it's the best fit. And that's really it. Don't stress about it, it's really not that hard. Just remember to focus on what's important to you. Well, with all that said, we'll wrap this video up. If you enjoyed it, I hope you would give it a like, and leave a comment below if you've recently interviewed some brokerages and tell me how it went or some of the questions that you asked. If you're interested in coming along on my journey as a new agent, I hope you would consider subscribing for more videos like this. But let's make every day count, be more than average, and I'll see you in the next video.